dealing with stories which are really tough?
I don't know how I deal with it. Maybe I'm a little cuckoo. In my other sphere, I'm generally a happy person. Everything I experience, where I experience it, how I experience it, I take it all in. I live fully.
You're listening to She's Got Drive podcast, the podcast that inspires women to be the driver in their own life through the life and stories of Black women with drive. And I'm your host, Shirley McAlpine. I'm a business consultant, an executive coach, and a leadership facilitator, working with people and organisations to live their lives by design and not default. Welcome back to another episode of She's Got Drive. Welcome back. And this episode is part 2 of the interview with Michelle Miller. I want to start this episode with what's been kind of resonating with me since publishing that interview. And, you know, the title is all about how most successful people fail and make mistakes, a lot of mistakes. And it's really been sitting with me because why they make so many mistakes and why they fail so many times is, as we know, they're going for things. They are wanting to advance. They're wanting to challenge themselves, and they put themselves into the gap of learning. And in that gap of learning is the space where you have to try things out and you don't necessarily know how to do it. And so you're going to fail or you're going to make mistakes. I know that's been my experience on certain things that I've been doing. And I'm in that experience now as I take on a big undertaking for me and my business as I stretch and grow. And so that notion of you can only be successful or you can only succeed, however you define success, whatever that reach is for you, that dream is for you, knowing that you will fail at some point and you will make mistakes at some point. And so failure is inevitable. We've heard that phrase before, with that quote before. And so given that it's inevitable, when we can prepare for when they arrive. That's the difference for me this week. I had this insight, like, well, I know that I'm going to make mistakes along this journey that I'm on as I undertake this big thing for myself in my business. I know that I'm going to fail at some point. So can I prepare for those moments of failure? Not like I know what it is, but in terms of my relationship to it. I don't have to let it stop me. I don't have to get so disappointed. I don't have to make myself wrong. I don't have to get really judgmental on myself, like I should have known better. I don't need to do any of those things. What I could just do is notice, and like, there it is. There's that mistake I made. And what can I learn? What can I review, learn, and then move on? Like, could I fast track my way through the mistake because I'm not spending a lot of time on just making myself wrong about it? I can just be with that it's a mistake, or I failed, and I just pick myself up and I start all over again, or I pick up and I go to where I need to be. So that's what I've been sitting with, and it's been a very powerful insight for me as I take on this part of my business in this way. So I'm just so happy in a way, and so grateful for that insight that Michelle gave so powerfully. Okay, so with that, let's head over to Michelle and part 2. Now, remember, Michelle Miller is the co-host of CBS This Morning Saturday. She's also a correspondent that's worked on 48 Hours. She's reported on many stories of national and international importance. She's award-winning journalist, and she tackles some really challenging stories. And we're going to hear about her experience as a journalist, as well as her personal experience, as well as we're going to continue the conversation around success and failing and what does that mean for us in part 2. So I give you Michelle Miller.
Everyone who is going to give you a fair shake, you need to befriend.
Right. In one of the episodes on She's Got Drive is this model called Pi that came out of Harvey Coleman's work and it's a career enhancement model where you look at what are the things that facilitate someone's success in their career. When he did the research, he found so P stands for performance, I for image, stroke reputation, E for exposure, and that's exposure in relationships, so your network.
Yeah.
As you go through your career, as you kind of rise, if you like, that performance accounts for just 10% of your career success.
Really?
Yeah. The image accounts for 30%. 60% of your success is around your network and the people who are sponsoring you.
That would explain the success of social media influencers,
Right.
wouldn't it?
Right.
I mean, or Kim Kardashian.
Right.
Because she's had incredible exposure.
Right.
She has a pretty wide berth of friends. But when it comes to, no one
is she
really
doing?
understands what it is that she is selling, doing. I mean, she's sort of created a business now, but
Initially.
it was her popularity that she was
And
exposing.
it accounts for, so it doesn't mean that, and when he talks about performance, it doesn't mean you have to, you can't have great performance, but he talks about performance as your table stakes. You can't even get into the places that you want to be unless you're doing great work, right? But the thing that's going to facilitate the movement that you're seeking is making sure that people have the reputation, which you're
Right.
always managing, but making sure that you have enough relationships so that the people, when decisions are made about your career, you're not usually in the room.
Right.
Right? Someone else is in the room. So they need to know who you are. And if they don't know who you are, if you're beavering away in your organization
Right.
or whatever you're doing, and no one knows that you're doing great work, well, all that's happening is you're beavering away.
Right. No, I know exactly.
So when you speak about
see-
someone's able to say, I know, or your name comes across, and you can have someone say, I can vouch for her.
Right.
She's great. She'll be great in that role.
Well, I tell my network of people all the time, you have to speak up for yourself.
Right.
I mean, you're your best promoter.
Yeah.
I know so many exceptional people doing exceptional work, and their mantra is just do the work, which is really important.
You have to do the work. Yeah, you have to.
But then I tell them, you got to do the work, but then you also got to go and ask for the work.
Yeah.
You got to ask for what you want.
Right.
And like Mason told me, mommy, go get that.
Exactly. And even in the asking is telling for the person that you're asking. The fact that you're coming to them, you're proactive,
Right.
That is also generating
because
something else.
I work with so many incredibly talented people.
Right.
And humble. You wouldn't think that. There are a lot of people who are in this profession who have a really sane level of humility.
Yes.
It's almost, in some cases, it's self-defeating because they're hardworking. They are excellent at what they do, and yet they can't get over the hump. And the hump is asking.
Mm-hmm.
It is self-promoting.
Yep.
It is always it's networking and always being in the know of what's going on.
Right.
Where the opportunities are.
Right.
And there was a lot when I would also have to say that when you assume a certain level, you know what's going on in certain circles, but people have to trust telling you information.
Mm-hmm.
And I think at some point people started to really trust giving me information because they felt as though either I was worth handing that information over to, and that's kind of what our profession is. People trusting that you will do with the information only good things.
Right. How do you cope with dealing with stories which are really tough, like you talked about?
I don't know.
How do you deal with that?
I don't know how I cope. I must have an inner coping mechanism because I've seen some pretty brutal and told some pretty brutal stories, from sex trafficking to the killing of young African American men, just all the way around. I mean, you name it, by whom, or people. I remember the first time I walked into a murder scene, literally where the bodies were still in the room.
Oh, wow.
And the way death hangs over a tragic scene like that, it's frightening. I've been in the middle of, unrest. I think I've been in the middle of, nature falling down around you. I think I haven't seen war, but I've seen hunger. I've seen extreme poverty. I've seen children who don't have, enough of anything. And I see unfairness. And I think more than anything, the depravity of when people are deprived of things that are accessible in plenty to others, that really it really gets me. So how do I deal with it? I don't know how I deal with it. Maybe I'm a little cuckoo. In my other sphere, I'm generally a happy person. I laugh. I like bringing joy. I really, everything I experience, where I experience it, how I experience it, I take it all in. I live fully.
Well, so, when we met, one of the things that was striking, of course, you were doing your host thing, and you were very funny as well.
I'm glad to hear that. Was I really?
You were really funny, yeah. Okay. And then we headed over to Red Rooster for the after party. And you are joyous, and you are radiant is a word that I would use.
Thank you.
So that was it was really striking. So when you say that, I really get that about you. So that juxtaposition of the kind of things that you have to cover. How do you prepare yourself if you know you're about to go into a scene, and it's not like seeing it like it's been set up, but you're going to be reporting on a story, and it's going to be tough when you get there. What do you do en route? What are you doing?
I wish I had an answer for you. No, there's no routine. There's no ritual. I'm sure there is a moment of reflection. I'm sure there's a moment of peace. I'm sure there's a moment of trepidation. I'm sure there's a moment of wonder, anxiety. All those moments, I'm sure. I just don't. They're not. I don't mean this in the way it sounds, but they're not a manufactured ritual or a curated ritual that I put together. I think what happens for me is I get lost in the conversation that I'm having with someone, because I'm focused on the conversation. A really good interview is a really good conversation. I've had some awful interviews with some pretty amazing people, and I won't share names.
Well, you thought it was going to go a particular way, and it's like pulling teeth?
Pulling teeth. I've had one interview where someone basically went off on me. Oh my God, this is so funny. So this man goes off on me in front of his wife and his children and the school.
Right.
And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, well, I could yell back at him because he's completely disrespecting me.
Right.
I could calm him down. I could let him talk and let him get it all out.
Right.
Because it was like he snapped. Or, I could just excuse myself and leave. And I said, well, I can't. Even though it was the end of the interview, what was crucial was I needed him to help me get his son, which was the next day.
Right.
So if I just left and continued, and he left angry, that wasn't going to happen.
The end of that.
The end of that. And I said, I could not have come down here and not have gotten what I came down to get.
Right.
So I let him go, and he went on for about 7 minutes. And so I said, I don't understand what I said that angered you. And I'm sorry. I'm really sorry, because that wasn't my intent, I said, the interview's over. So all said, he ended up returning our rental car because we were running late. So obviously I patched it up.
Right.
I get on the plane and I call my husband and he said, how did it go? And he didn't know any of the players really. He said, how'd it go? And I said, it was a trip. And I told him what happened and I described the person in the sense that who he was in the community, what he did, where he went to school. And how he was from,
where he was from.
Yeah, where he's from, right. And my husband said, I know that guy. That guy's a really good guy. He was like, that guy was blah, 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 blah. So they had a connection way back when they were children. And so I said, okay, great. I texted the daughter and told the daughter, oh my gosh, my husband wanted me to tell your dad, hello, he's so-and-so. Plane takes off, plane lands. I look at my BlackBerry and the text message from the daughter reads, OMG, my father fell over the couch when I told him who your husband was. He knows him, loves him. They were children together. It was like, so here it was. Right. He had an impression of where I was going. Totally misread this. I'm sitting there thinking his reevaluation of who I was in connection to who his childhood friend was.
Yeah.
But it told me you never know who you're talking to.
You never know. I've started to ask my guests, like, what's one of the courageous moments that they've had in their life that they'd like to share?
Probably, I went to a number of different schools when I was a child. So every first day of school at a new school was a courageous moment for me. Embarking upon my college experience across the country was courageous. Backpacking by myself through Europe and North Africa by myself was courageous. Leaping into this profession was courageous. Right. Taking the job in South Carolina, leaving my family when my father was diagnosed with cancer because he said, you have to go find your life. Don't stay here for me. That was courageous. I sometimes feel as though I took the easy road because I wasn't there. I mean, he lived another 4 years, but what would I have been sacrificing if I had stayed there for 4 years? Because he died when I was 26 or 7 years old. Choosing my husband was courageous. Pretty courageous. And having the audacity to think that I could live my dreams. That's pretty courageous. Right. And speaking to the universe about what you truly want. See, a lot of things I hold back. I don't tell the universe. I may think about it, but I don't tell the universe because I'm not quite sure that's the best thing for me.
Okay.
There are things that you think might be, but I think your soul knows that's not smart.
Sometimes when there's a thing that's coming out for you.
Yeah, and if it doesn't come out of you, there's a reason for that.
What's one thing that you haven't said to the universe that you'd love to?
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's so private.
You don't have to. You can say
no, because I can't think of the one thing. But there are a lot of things that I haven't said, and it's like I hold on to them because I'm afraid to say them.
In case it happens.
Because what is the one thing we fear the most?
Our success.
Our success.
Yeah.
Succeeding.
Yeah.
This is the best job I've ever had. This one right now. Right now I'm having the most fun that I've ever had. I'm over the moon every Friday afternoon. I am so excited about Saturday morning. Right. Despite the fact that I have to get up at 3:00 in the morning, right. I'm grinning in the car. I'm grinning in the makeup chair. I'm grinning at the computer. I'm grinning on set. And my boss and I have this really hilarious relationship, my executive producer. I'm like even though he's younger than me, it's like we have this sibling relationship, and I often seem to be the younger of the two siblings. He says, "You are my favorite person by the end of the show because I'll hear you saying under your breath, for no one but yourself." I love this show. I love this show. And that just makes him a happy being.
Yeah.
Because I'm saying it to myself. I love this show so much. Because it is what life should be.
Yes.
It is serious and yet joyous. It is entertaining yet informative. It is all of those things wrapped up in this 2-hour package. I tell people, I go to work to talk a little bit about current events, to talk a little bit about social issues, to hear some great music that I haven't ever heard before,
right.
to eat something I've never tasted before, and to have a drink with two of my best friends.
Right.
It really is.
What's not to love about that?
Nothing
really
at all not to love
about.
about. And then I get to go home by 10:30 in the morning.
That's amazing. One is that you're doing a job that you love, which is phenomenal, and not enough people can say that.
Right.
And two, that you are so present to the joy of it,
yes.
which is just.
Well, that's what live television is. You're present
Fantastic.
in the joy. You're present in the failure. You're always present.
You're always
the risk is you're in it.
Yeah.
And you're in it in that moment. And the thing is, once you see, the thing about people who fall down is if they hesitate. Like, you know, I was catching myself today. It was like I flurbed a question and I kept going back. Well, that segment's over.
That's right.
That's over. You cannot go back and recapture that loss. You just get back up after you stumble over the hurdle and you keep charging ahead.
Right.
You just keep going.
That's a metaphor for life.
It really is.
Yeah.
It really is.
Because there's so many times when we are, and it's replay and review's a good skill. Like for us to look back and say, well, what was it that had me do that? Oh, I started thinking about something else, or I had a moment of doubt, so that's important.
Right.
But not to dwell in it, not to keep going back and back and back and making yourself run for something that you literally can't do anything about anymore.
And the thing about when you are in that moment, when you fail in front of people, it always, like in a public speaking class, or you're giving a speech,
right,
or you're talking to a group of friends, or whatever it is in your moment of stupidity, failure, embarrassment, whatever, it's never as bad to the other person.
Yeah, exactly.
It is never, ever as bad.
Sometimes
as
they
you
can't
have
even remember
in
it.
Your head.
Right.
Right.
Right. That you've and in your replay, which just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, instead of it doesn't shrink. It just gets bigger.
Yeah.
And then someone will say, "Oh, I didn't even. Are you still talking about that?" You know.
Stop it.
It's
like, really? Was I that bad?
The theme is our route to success is filled with moments of failing, but moments of learning, and that we can't really expect to go for the life that we want without it. Mm-hmm. And out of the mouth of babes comes wisdom.
There it is. There are a lot of those cliches that work perfectly in my life.
You know, that is
my
really...
life is, it's pretty interesting how, I think everyone's is. I mean...
In different ways.
In different ways.
You touched on being a working mum and leaving, like having missed. Mm-hmm. How do you square that circle?
I don't know. I mean, talk to me when my kids are grown.
Right.
Kids, you never know with children. I find that children are resilient, and I grew up without I grew up with my father and his mother, and not my mother. That was her choice, and she, to this day, no one on that side of the family knows I exist.
Okay.
But I'm still in touch. I'm like, after when my father was diagnosed with cancer, he wanted me to find her, so I did. I found her. she just, I mean, she's okay to have a relationship with me in private, but she just doesn't want anyone to know about it.
Okay.
That doesn't sit well with me. So, there's not much of a relationship there. I call her once a year or so.
Okay.
Because I can't, it's just more of the abandonment and the, you got to acknowledge people. And I don't find I'm not an acknowledged presence.
Right.
So that's tough for me. I was talking to my coworker, the one who walked by, Anthony Mason, about 7 or 8 years ago, and I said, you know what, I'm going to write a book. He said, I have the perfect first line for you. And I said, you do? And he said, yeah. He said, I am my mother's secret. And I was like, whoa, that is deep.
That is deep.
He said, yeah, the rest just pours right out. Now, obviously, I haven't written the book yet.
Not
but
yet.
I might. My husband keeps telling me, you need to write your book.
You do need to write your book. I think that you are, in many ways, a rarity. The importance of your story being told. We haven't talked about your father and the historic moment of your father as well.
Well, he had many historic moments because he was, there are things you never know about your parents. But the one thing that really gave me a great deal of pride going back to, am I there enough for my children? And that's every parent's question. And I didn't live in the same house with him, but he was the president of every PTA at every school that I went to. When I learned that, I never knew that. He was highly involved behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And I just think about all the things I said to him and put him through, and that, I guess I'm getting that. I think he's kind of like smiling down from above, looking at my life now with my kids. Every grandparent does, and they chuckle.
Right.
And I was a pretty good kid, but I was, a kid who was like hurting, and I took it out on him because he was the one that was there.
Right.
And the great thing is when you get in your 20s, that's when you're an adult like your parents and you get to know your parents. You can make up for any mistakes you made or hurts or slights when you were a teenager.
Yeah.
So like that first 10 to 12 years is like pretty good. It's golden for parents. And those teenage years, not so much. But in the 20s, there's that opportunity. And fortunately, I had enough of the 20s where I got some good time in with him. And great conversations. The best trip I ever did with my dad was I brought my aunt and my father to South Carolina. South Carolina was a great experience for me. And I brought them together, and they were staying in my apartment. It was so funny. We went on road trips. But I'll never forget, I was sleeping on the couch, and they slept in the bed. And I could hear them all night. It was like they were reliving their childhood. They were talking like two teenagers would talk, about their old, all the things that happened when they were kids and when they were teenagers and the things in college and as adults. And it was just one of the most magnificent moments to listen in on. And I'm so glad I had that opportunity to listen in on that. And my aunt is still living. She's 93 years old.
Wow.
And she's, still Aunt Edna. Boy, she was, what gumption that lady has. And he died, 20 plus years ago, 22 years ago. People remember things. They don't remember everything in their life. If you give them some moments they can cherish. Yeah. So hopefully I have some cherished moments with my children. They can look back on to get them through their teenage years until the 20s.
If you can reach back and speak to the younger you, what's the one or two things that you would want Michelle, the young Michelle, to know?
I think most people would say that I've always been bold and audacious, but there are times where I haven't been. And I think that I would tell myself to be bold even when it's not easy. See, there's a lot. I don't have many inhibitions, but the things that I have fear of are generally in that realm of advancement.
Right.
So, get out of my own way. I guess I would tell myself, my younger self, get out of your head and get out of your own way.
Right.
And just move forward and keep pushing and read. Always read. Read as much as you can. Love it.
Well, so many times as you've been speaking, the Marianne Williamson quote has been coming into my mind.
Oh, really?
Our
Which
deepest fear is not that we're inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we're powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us.
That's Marianne Williamson. That's
From
so
Return to Love. I know Nelson Mandela is.
There it is. That's
it's in his inaugural speech, and so people thought it was him, but it's from her. It's her.
Wow.
It's Return to Love, the book. Yeah.
A woman. We should have known.
It speaks so much to me about how much we are really fearful of our success, and how it doesn't. Well, she said, "Your playing small does not serve the world." There's something about that, like when we are in spaces when we have real opportunity to keep expanding, that we do it for us and we do it for others. It matters that people turn on their TV set Am I that old? Turn on their TV or go online, and then they see you on a Saturday morning. It matters. It really does. So thank you so much for that, and for whatever that your campaign to do that. Thank you to Mason for giving his mum a nudge.
Yes.
As well. Just to be there and to keep.
And to all you out there, do not fear. Succeed.
Yeah.
I hope that you've been inspired to shift gears in your own life. Well, another great interview, isn't it? I just loved this interview with Michelle, and I'm curious to see what you're taking away from this interview, because it really is, there's so many strategies, there's so many insights, there's so many things that we can all apply, and just even the reminder that our ability to succeed comes from our ability to connect and make and build really good, powerful relationships with people, and that with that, and then some humility in that too, is what I got as well. There's so much here. I'm wondering what your takeaways are for Michelle's strategies around her success, really, that you've gleaned from this interview. So let me know. I always want to hear from you. So you can contact me on my Instagram account at Shirley McAlpine. You can reach out through my website, shirleymcalpine.com/contact me, or there's always the She's Got Drive Facebook page where you can leave comments and really just share the impact that this interview and the other interviews on the She's Got Drive podcast is having. I am always excited to hear from you, and thank you so much for listening. And there's always the rating and reviewing on Apple iTunes as well, which is always important to increase our listenership on the podcast. So head over to iTunes to do that, and have a fabulous week until I'm back with you next week. Thank you so much for listening. Go well and stay well.